Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm excited to be joined by Cecile Mengue. Cecile and I were on a panel for the North Texas ISSA Lunch and Learn last week, but we kind of connected before then, and she does a lot of speaking, and she's got a really interesting story on how she became a penetration tester. So I'm very excited for you all to hear her story. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So why don't you kind of share your background, your hacker origin story, kind of how you got started in pen testing?
Yes, actually, my career in pen testing or in cybersecurity in general was a career change. So I got my degree in criminal justice. I always wanted to go to law school and just pursue law. But right after college, I decided to work instead of going straight to law school, which I think that sometimes I feel like that's what end up pivoting everything else that that came after that. So I decided to get a job. So I got a job with the juvenile court. So while I was working at juvenile court, I started getting into a venture of doing like side businesses, trying to explore my entrepreneurial side. Um, at that moment, I was doing a lot of like event promotion or event planning, putting event on, promoting them all over the internet. And through that process of doing that, I got hacked. Um, and it was pretty much a ransom note asking for me to send it was about $500, right?
Wow.
Which was not much money, but I just got curious of how I kind of end up becoming the target. I was like, why did they pick me? Why did they see that I have easy $500 for them to get? Um, but through that process, so I end up sending the money, but eventually they just kind of like took over all my accounts. And today I know that I just had like bad practice. I had the same password for every single account that I had online, including my bank account, which they also end up taking control of and just kind of
Wow.
transferring all the money. Um, so with that said, I sent the money and nothing changed. The computer never got back to me. And after a few days, I started thinking, I was like, because that really kind of bothered me because I felt like my attacker kind of violated so many points, right? Because they went all the way to my bank account. I started thinking like, how was they able to do that? And I wonder how far did they actually go because I have no clue. Up to this point, I'm just using the internet to check my email, go to Facebook, post ads, Craigslist posting ads for like my activities. And that was it. I've never like thought anything twice about computers or anything. But that really gave me an eye opener. Once I got over like the anger, right? Curiosity kind of came. It was three different emotions. It was anger, then curiosity, then after curiosity, it was determination, right? So once I became curious about how it happened, I started kind of like poking around the internet myself, trying to Google I just kind of started with basic Googling different things, hacking. Then I came across the OSINT framework, and I was like, oh, so you can find that information using different tools and things and that. So initially, and then with my criminal justice background, investigating and looking into things was really like, a thing for me. So I kind of slowly started there. And at first I just wanted to know why I was the target, why I was the chosen one. But eventually it turned into, I wonder with just the small information I had on this person, if I can like track them down and see if I could get my money back. So my mission came from just trying to figure out why they chose me to like, let me see if I can track this person down. I was a little confident with that part because I had to end up sending the money, but I ended up using Western Union, right? I didn't do any kind of like, and the person name was kind of unique. So with that, I started just kind of Googling the person and couldn't find them nowhere online. It was like that person didn't exist anywhere. I tried to call Western Union, just there wasn't no help there. But eventually what I did by using like the different tools on the OSINT framework, I came across an old MySpace page that kind of like, I think they forgot about that because that man was nowhere online. When I say it was nowhere online, so the page wasn't any big, didn't give me any much information, but what I was able to get from the page was that whoever this person was and whoever this name was, they had something to do with music, right? Eventually. So I only had two things. I had the full name and the city and state that I sent the money. So I got off the online and I went and like requested a old phone book. You remember phone books where they used to put all the phone number, addresses, and things like that back in the day?
Yeah.
I was shocked that I was able to get my hand on one of those. So they sent it to me because, and I was still banking on the fact that he has such a unique last name that it wasn't going to be that hard. So I end up getting the phone book and I find three numbers or three other names in the phone book with the same last name. So now there was one of the person was a lady that her information was readily everywhere online, right? So I end up finding her phone number, her address, and quite a bit of information. I found her Facebook page. Then it looked like the person that was on the MySpace page, I also saw him on her page, right? So the names and everything kind of matched up. And I was like, you know what? I am just going to give her a call. So I gave her a call, and originally she was like, oh, he doesn't live here, and why, I don't know why he's giving you a number. So it turned out to be like long story, family issues and things like that. But then, because I almost had a pretext in my head, right? Because I knew the guy was in a band, he played in a band, and I kind of went here with that pretext. I say, well, we have a show tonight. This is the number he gave me. I'm not sure why, but can you give me his direct number because I need to talk to him now. I needed to create some type of emergency, and she ended up giving me his number. So when I called the guy, it turned out to be just a little young boy in the middle of Kansas City somewhere. So he turned out to be just kind of like a step with in between a big old scheme that was going on, right? So he absolutely had no clue. When I say, when he picked up the phone, I said, can you please send my money back? He was like, which one are you? I said, hold on, what do you mean? So clearly he picked up thousands and thousands and thousands of people money. And what he was doing is he was taking his cut and forwarding the rest to a certain person that he knew by the first name only, right? So he was nice enough to give me the little information he had, which was an email address on this person and a name that I didn't even know if it was going to do anything now because the name became very consistent. So with the person email address, I went back online just looking. I couldn't find the email anywhere too. So eventually I started looking into like data breach, like to see if the message, I mean the email will bring any kind of any more information on the person. So eventually it did. I end up kind of locating the whole operation out of London. And eventually I sent an email to the person with enough information to letting them know that I know what was going on, and that they needed to talk to me so we could see how I could get my money back. So they call me. They end up calling me from a black number. So we kept going back and forth. They was actually a lot more interested in how I was able to track them versus, talking any money, right? But I kept going back and forth with them. I end up getting every single penny of my money from them. With in exchange that I don't turn the information that I had into the law or whatever. So yeah, so it took me like a whole bunch of different doing a whole bunch of OSINT at this point. And this I learned some couple script online to scrap information from have been pawned and things like that. And that's pretty much from those steps, from those things I was able to get back to my attacker. And so it was a mixture of fishing, and just building different small little script that I was able to get right back into the computer, and then I got my money back. And that became very interesting because I was like, wow, that was actually pretty cool. I remember talking to my mom and I was like, do you think I should ask them for more money? And she was like, that wouldn't be ethical, I said, but they're wasting my time. This was a couple months in the process, right? This was not like today, tomorrow. Like, this is something that took me a while. So eventually I got interested in cybersecurity, in hacking to start with. But the thing was, I kept waiting because I didn't think that I thought I didn't think that I could do it, right? Because I felt like every time I started like researching hackers or pen testers or anything in cybersecurity. One of the things that I kind of noticed, like, nobody looked like me, nobody really, was even thinking like me. And it seems like the story was kind of like the same, like, oh, I was 5 years old. My dad gave me a computer and I started hacking, and I went after that then. So I was like, man, I'm over here like 20 some years old. About to be 30. I was like, this is not, this is a dream. I should just hang up, right? And I think I went through that for a couple of years in my head, wouldn't pull a trigger just because I was stopping my own self. And I met this guy who was actually a pen tester. And when he told me what he did, I was like, oh my God, I've been trying to look into it and this and that. And he was like, well, you should do it. You seem pretty smart. I was like, I'm kind of scared. It just seemed like most people that's in the field just been playing with computer a lot longer. I don't know how I could how I could play against that. And then he was like, you could do it. Trust me. Your attitude and just the way you go about things is actually, it's already a big step. And then the technical skill you could learn. It was I always say that it was kind of weird that I always knew this, but it took somebody else to make me pull the trigger, right? So you just need that person, and it's just a random person. He tells you something, and now before you know, I'm looking for boot camps. I'm looking for school, trying to get my skills up and things like that. And from then, now we're here today.
Very cool. Especially cool to how you track down the attacker. That was pretty amazing.
Yes, I wrote a whole article on it on Medium. I wrote a blog on that. Yes.
Yeah, that could be a totally different career for you. We're doing cyber investigation, so that's pretty cool.
Right.
So as far as learning pen testing, what courses and boot camps and stuff did you take to learn to be a pen tester?
Well, I did a lot of self, a lot of YouTubing. so many different influencers like in the space, like Chuck. He was somebody that I follow very strongly. Um, and so I did a lot of like YouTubing at the beginning, and then I end up signing up for this boot camp. And one of the reasons I was able to get to go after this boot camp, because these things was like kind of expensive, right? So I just find a boot camp online that say, hey, you don't pay until you start working or something like that. And I was like, you know what? This is a sign. So I just signed up. And I took a boot camp. The boot camp was pretty much a general cybersecurity. We did what is it called? It kind of covered everything, like it was mostly like analysts. We did some pen testing, but not that heavy. um I was just doing my own heavy pen testing training and just projects on my own.
So what was your first role in cybersecurity? What was your first role?
Pen tester with IBM.
Ah, that's good. That's a good place to start your very first job as a pen tester. That's good.
Yes, yes. And that was kind of like and that was another thing, right? Because once I was done with boot camp, now what? It was like, now should I go start running after every certification, or like when did this stop? I was just trying to figure it out. And talking to so many different people, you get so many different approach, so many different advice, right? Um, and most of the times, you're like, "Oh, you want to be a pen tester? It's hard to be a pen. It's hard to get into pen testing. You probably need to start with like, um, I mean, they wouldn't even put me in cybersecurity. They were like, you probably should start doing like some kind of like tech support, right?" I was like, "But I want to be in cybersecurity. Why I have to go do tech support?" Like, well, first of all, you had no background. I was like, "Oh my god, you're such a dream killers in these streets." But
Yeah.
that's yeah. So that's kind of like, and I was like, no, but everything really kind of turned for me when I kind of like really understood like my story, and I knew my why, right? Because after going through that whole process with like going after my attacker and actually taking down a whole operation, this was just not like a one thing. It was like a whole operation. These people were just stealing people money all the whole time. I knew my passion. I always had a passion about going after the bad guy to protect the good guy, right? And I just felt like pen test would like give me that feeling without having to have a gun on my hip, or as I was going to be in criminal justice, right? Um, so what really clicked for me was once I knew I wanted to do pen testing, I say forget every other aspect of cybersecurity. I will focus on pen test. I will like work on my skills. Every every skill that I could think, every tool that I could think of in the industry, I will practice it. I will work on it and work on it and work on it. I worked on different like capture the flag, different things. I worked on try hack me. Um and just different platform like that. I just stuck on it. And then what I did was I focused my resume solely in pen testing, versus staying open to whatever comes within cybersecurity. um and I felt like that made such a big difference, because at this point I put like 100 different applications out there, and as an entry level person, nobody was even paying me no mind, right? It was just rejection after rejection after rejection. But until I sat back and I kind of just came back and just refocused my whole resume, at least with no like with no work experience per se. It was hard, so I focused a lot of like a space within my resume that was just hacking experience, and I talked about some of my personal projects that I worked on, And also, one of the things that I did actually was I was working with, I wasn't working with them. There's this TV station in a local small TV station in Dallas. Um, it's a black owned TV station in Dallas. I used to stream it all the time. Then I noticed something on the website. It's like they didn't have an SSL certificate. And I was like, a lot of service that just stream, usually like a lot of them don't, they don't care. But then I saw it was like a page where it was a page that people was filling out information and things like that. So I called and I called and said, hey, can I speak to somebody who's like in IT, like in a group? And he was like this one guy. In IT, and I think he was just plugging up the computers and plugging them back out, right? So that's how small the not when I'm looking at it, that's kind of how small this thing was.
Mhm.
So I spoke with somebody at that point. I was in boot camp, and I was like, hey, I'm going to school for cybersecurity. I'm taking this boot camp, and I would love to just kind of just come. And I told them about the SSL certificate on the website, and I said I would love to come and see if like they could make space for me to see if I could help them securing the network and just the assets in general. Um, I spoke to the manager, then he was like, "Why not? Sure." But then I didn't know what I was going to do. Right? I felt like I talked too fast, and I didn't think nobody was going to take me seriously. And they end up saying, okay, sure, can you come in on this date or whatever? And I was like, yeah, sure. So now I have no clue what I'm doing. So I spoke to my boot camp teacher and I told him what happened. He was like, you should totally do it. So he actually, and it can end up giving me like a complete roadmap, step by step of what I needed to do, right? Just pretty much kind of like take inventory of software. He gave me all the way down to like the command lines. Yeah, you run this, then once you get this, you look for this, then you run that. It was like step by step. There's no way I could have went wrong. So of course I went there. The whole security was just completely. I mean, I worked with them on that process on that. So then once I was done with that, just kind of like doing inventory of the software, updating what was out of date, just kind of creating some kind of separation of privilege because everybody was just working on the same system and it was kind of like no separation. They didn't know who, um, after I was done with that, they gave me a letter of recommendation. The letter of recommendation pretty much say what I did with them. Uh, why would they recommend it? Well, why would they recommend me? How was I working with others, and why would they recommend me? And they wrote me a really nice recommendation letter. So once I decided, oh wow, so then I called my church. So it's kind of like then I started like doing with small company with like very small group. Um, and when I was applying at this point, I was using my recommendation letters on top of that. So I felt like that made a big difference, right? I was about to I think I joined like a group. IBM has a group called Women at IBM. I just, at this point, I was just kind of like trying to network, trying to see what's going on. So I kind of joined, I put an application for Women at IBM. There was like the group is not just for women at IBM. So anybody interested in finding out what women do at IBM and do, they can be part of it. So they sent me a letter, said, okay, congratulations, you in. I thought they gave me a job or something. I was super excited just at that point. But I ended up through that network, I think IBM was coming up with an apprenticeship program that they started where now they was trying to give people that don't have like a 4-year program a chance into like trying the position in the job. And then they also open like very few entry level pen testing position. And that's kind of and the end of sending it to me. I promise you, I looked at that job description 100 times, and I kept telling myself, I'm not gonna be the one. Why waste my time? I'm not gonna be the one. Why waste my time? And a couple of days before the thing, I just, you know what is it gonna hurt, right?
Yeah.
So then I taught myself again. I said, what is it gonna hurt? So I went here and I sent the application, and then today everything is history. And I've been there since.
Yeah, very, very interesting story and really good. That's good lessons for people to learn there. Just some of the the opportunities you've taken advantage of, especially like the one with the television station, reaching out to them and some people would have been intimidated and turned down that. So it was really good that you pursued that and you got the good recommendations. And
Yes.
by networking, you end up getting your role where you're at. So that's a great story. You hear so many people that are trying to switch careers. They don't have a 4-year degree or certifications, and they're asking how they could get a job. And you had took the courses and the boot camp and learned what you're doing. It's just a matter of the way you pursued it and got a job is pretty inspirational, very inspirational.
Well, thank you. Yes.
So based off of your experiences, what would you recommend to someone else? I mean, you've been through obviously what you worked and worked great, but if you were going to guide someone else that wanted to become a penetration tester, what would you recommend?
Well, usually I do speak on this subject a lot as a speaker too. Um, my approach will always be like, I feel like in security, nothing is open. Just don't be like open, right? Especially if you're starring, you should really identify what your passion lies on and where you could really learn and really like, what do you say, and really work on those skills that are needed for the job. So once you identify what you like, what you would be good at, now just learn the methodologies and try to understand how the workflow and the methodology work. And then on top of that, the tools and everything, that the skill that are needed in that particular field, and just try your best to and then start working on that. And it's also very important to like network, right? And just talk to people, see, you could always get something from somebody, whether even if it's not a whole, I see like a lot of people come, hey, can you give me a job? Like, no, I can't give you a job. But this is what I can, but then their focus is just so much on the job that they forget the small nuggets and the small things that they are picking up on the in the process. I was in the Dallas Fort Worth area actually, and when I was looking for work, I remember I was in this meetup. There was I'm trying to remember what was the name of the meetup, and there was this guy who came who was in that meetup, and he was working for an insurance company, and he was like, "Hey, they're looking for security analysts or whatever." And I was like, at that point, that's the time I was still very open to like, whatever comes, just give it to me, right? But when you start thinking about it, sometimes when I talk to the incident response team, they start talking about the tool, the stuff they use. I'm like, there's no way as a beginner you just could like be like learn so much like in such a broad area, right? Um, so he told me to send him to send me his resume, he asked me to send him my resume so that he could look over. And he did a lot of correction on my resume as well, right? And and this was just a complete stranger on a meetup group who posted something. I said, hey, I'm interested. And I just told him what I was doing. And then he helped me with my resume. I don't even, and I think when I eventually got the job, which I think it took me from boot camp, it took me about 3 months.
Well,
Yeah, it took me about 2.5, 3 months. On the 3 months mark, I was sitting working.
That's good.
um, yes. So I went back and told him, I was like, hey, I got a pen tester job with IBM. He was like, what? Really? What? And then he started asking me if I could get him in. I said, send me your resume. Let's see.
That's funny. That's
Yes.
very funny. Well, that's awesome. It's a very cool story. So we're getting down towards the end of the show, but thank you for coming on and sharing your inspirational story. And it was very interesting, and I think it's going to go over well with the listeners. You're going to inspire some people with that story as you have in your talks and when you shared with others.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.